Imagine a secret box of old pictures and stories. For a long time, these secrets were hidden away. Nobody talked about them. But what if those secrets are now coming out? What if they show something surprising about someone famous, someone we thought we knew everything about? This story is like opening that box. It's about old pictures and talks that were kept quiet, but now they are making people wonder and ask big questions. When you were a little kid, what did your parents hope you would grow up to be? Most parents just want their children to be happy. Are you happy now? I am happy because I have many good things in my life, but I also have a big wish. I want to do something important and really make my mark. The story you are about to hear is not a gentle one. It's a tough story. For many years, people thought this story was all done. The names of the people involved were known. The problems were handled in court. The news headlines moved on to other things. But just because things are quiet doesn't mean the whole truth is gone. Sometimes it just means the truth is being held back, waiting for a time when it's safe to come out. Now from inside a prison cell, a woman named Ghislaine Maxwell no longer has friends to protect. She doesn't have good names to keep safe, and she doesn't have future plans to worry about. People say she has started talking, not loudly for everyone to hear, but carefully, choosing her words. And among the names she is now whispering again is one that many people thought no one could ever touch: Meghan Markle. We're not talking about Meghan as a princess or a duchess. We're talking about her from a long time ago, a time before she had fancy titles, before cameras followed her everywhere, before her life seemed like a fairy tale. It was a time when getting into special places was more important than being famous. It was when pictures were taken, and no one knew how much trouble they would cause many years later. Old pictures that no one saw before are now showing up again. Friends or connections that people used to say didn't matter are now being looked at again. And things that were once quietly made to disappear are now coming back into the open. This is not a story about silly talk or rumors. This is a story about things that just couldn't stay hidden forever. Every big secret or problem has a moment when things get out of hand. It's not announced loudly, it just gets exposed. We hear from many people that a group of pictures that were once kept very secret has now come out for everyone to see. These pictures are called troublesome, not because they look bad at first glance, but because of who is in them, where they were taken, and who else was there at the time. For years, these pictures were supposedly erased, taken off computers, stopped from being shared, and made impossible to use. But now they are back. The reason, some people say, is simple. Too many people knew about them, too many things were connected, and too many people saw what happened. It was too hard to keep everyone quiet forever. At some point, staying silent became more risky than letting the truth come out. What makes these pictures so upsetting is not just that they exist. It's all the hard work that went into making sure they disappeared. Big organizations don't erase things unless they could cause problems. News companies don't quietly hide things unless someone somewhere decided it was better if people didn't see them. And now, that plan to hide things has fallen apart. The pictures show Meghan Markle in a group of people and places that have long been linked to Jeffrey Epstein. This group wasn't just one place, but a whole network of fancy parties, private trips, and special entry to places. This is the point where the story changes from just talk to real facts. At first, a picture is just a picture, a face, a room, a moment in time. But what was happening around that picture changes everything. People say these pictures are damaging because they prove that Meghan was there. Not by chance, not just by what someone said, but physically there with a known group of people. They set a clear timeline. They connect people who could once pretend they didn't know each other. And most importantly, they help explain why things were kept quiet. When pictures disappear, it's usually not because someone is just embarrassed. It's about being held responsible for something. It's about what those pictures might make other people remember, confirm, or finally say out loud. Sources claim that people tried to make these things seem less important, to change the subject, or to draw attention away whenever these materials came up. Their plan wasn't to fight directly. It was to make everyone tired of asking questions. Let people get bored. Let the questions go away. Let the pictures stay hidden long enough so they don't matter anymore. But time has a way of changing who has the power. When protection goes away, when friends split up, when those who once benefited from keeping quiet no longer gain anything from it, the truth doesn't need to be proven again. It just needs to be shown. That's why these pictures matter. Not because they accuse someone of doing something wrong, but because they show where someone was. And where someone was is the first step in any serious investigation. To understand how all of this could happen, you need to know about being unknown. Before Meghan Markle became a famous person known around the world, she was something much more useful: unknown. During the years in question, people say she moved through fancy social places without anyone paying close attention because no one was watching her. She wasn't famous enough to get noticed, important enough to be asked questions, or well-known enough to be followed, and being unknown was a good thing for her. At private parties, special openings, and gatherings where only invited guests could come, unknown people easily fit in. No one remembered their names, and no one thought they were suspicious. No one asked how they got there, who invited them, or who paid for their trips. People say that during this time, Meghan Markle was at parties where being close to powerful people mattered more than being important yourself, where people met each other quietly, and special access was given without a lot of fuss. In those rooms, being a nobody was like a shield. It helps explain why her being there wasn't written down much at the time, why pictures didn't have names, and why people weren't linked to them. Only later, after she got married, after she became famous, after everyone started paying attention, did her past start to look dangerous, because being unknown only protects you for a while. And once a crown appears, every hidden step before it becomes part of the story, whether anyone wanted it to be there or not. If being unknown was like a shield, then getting into these places needed a special path. People say that one of the most common ways to get into these fancy social groups during that time was through a place called Soho House. This was a private club for members that was made to look relaxed, artsy, and harmless, but it quietly connected powerful people behind closed doors. In 2015, Meghan Markle is said to have flown to Istanbul for the opening of a Soho House location. At that time, she wasn't a famous person everyone knew. She wasn't the main star. She was described as someone who was there to fill up rooms, go to events, and help keep the party lively. But these gatherings weren't just random. Soho House openings attracted rich business people, people who were almost royalty, important people from Hollywood, and folks who liked to keep things secret more than being in the news. Invitations were like money. Having one meant you could get in. What made people quietly ask questions later, some say, was how much she traveled. International flights, fancy seats, a level of moving around that didn't seem to match how much money she made from acting back then. People claim that even her coworkers from her TV show secretly wondered how she was paying for all this travel. No one gave public answers. None were needed then, because in that special path, no one asks how you got there, only if you belong. To understand why people are worried about these pictures coming out again, you need to understand what people call the Epstein environment. This wasn't just one house, one island, or one city. It was a whole social system. People say that Meghan Markle was in New York many times during periods when Prince Andrew was also in the city. These were times when Jeffrey Epstein had many social events going on, and a regular group of people attended them. The important thing here isn't just one meeting, it's that it happened again and again. Being in the same place once can be a coincidence, but being there many times, crossing paths often, suggests that you know people, you're comfortable, and you're accepted. Sources claim that during this time, she moved easily in rooms where people met each other without formal introductions, and where everyone was expected to keep things quiet. These were not places where you signed in or where news reporters covered events. They were ruled by silence. This is why being close to these things matters, not because it proves someone did something wrong, but because it shows who had the chance to see, hear, and know what was happening behind closed doors. And in places that were later shown to be harmful, having that chance becomes a very serious thing. These pictures coming back out matters because they confirm that being close was not just a guess, it was real. At this point, the story gets bigger, not to change the subject, but to make things clearer. Based on new information that has been looked at again, Meghan Markle's journey is not special or one of a kind. Other women in Europe followed very similar paths. They started out doing some modeling or going to a lot of parties. They were close to important people, and then they ended up marrying into royal families. Two examples are often mentioned. Sophia of Sweden, whose past friends and connections, some say, link back to social places connected to Epstein as far back as 2005. She later married into royalty, and at that point, those early years quietly disappeared from public talk. Then there's Mette Marit of Norway, who said sorry in public in 2019 for being friends with Jeffrey Epstein, saying she made bad choices. Her past included some controversial friends and relationships that were made to seem less important once she became part of royal life. The important thing about these cases is not to judge them, it's to see a pattern. People say Epstein didn't just act randomly. He moved people around in a clever way. He put people in places where they could move up in life, and where their past could be quietly taken care of by powerful groups once they became important. When we look at it this way, the pictures that have come out again are not just single events. They become part of a bigger picture, where being unknown, getting access, and moving up in life all connect. And once you see that pattern, it's impossible to unsee it. By the time we get to this part of the story, the timing becomes impossible to ignore. People say February 2016 is important for one big reason. It shows up in two very different stories that are not supposed to connect. On one hand, this is the time when Meghan Markle later said she first met Prince Harry. On the other hand, people say this same time period matches what were called yacht weeks. These were private trips on boats, only for invited guests, involving rich people, models, and social companions. These events weren't like normal boat trips. They were like floating party places made for privacy, keeping secrets and only letting certain people in. Phones were not encouraged. News reporters were not allowed. Names rarely appeared in any records. Sources claim Meghan Markle was part of one of these yacht weeks during this exact time. The important thing here isn't to accuse anyone. It's that these two stories overlap. When two beginning stories share the same time period, one public, one private, questions naturally come up. Not because anyone is demanding an answer, but because timelines don't easily change once they are set. And in stories about powerful people, the timing is often the loudest detail of all. Until now, this story has mostly been talked about among people. Here, it enters the world of law. Court records and people involved in them claim that Virginia Giuffre, who was a main person accusing Jeffrey Epstein of bad things, wanted to call Meghan Markle as a possible witness in her court case against Prince Andrew. This wasn't just a symbolic gesture. There were three reasons. First, Meghan Markle lived in the United States, which meant the court could make her come. Second, she was said to have been a close friend of Prince Andrew for some time. And third, and most important, she was said to have been present in Jeffrey Epstein's social circle. In legal terms, being present matters not because it means someone is guilty, but because it shows who might have seen, heard, or understood what was happening when no one else was looking. Witnesses are not accused. They are just placed in a position to give information. In the end, she was not asked to testify in court, but the fact that her name was even thought about for legal reasons changed how people talked about the whole situation. At that moment, the story went from just being interesting gossip to being important in a court of law. Silence can last for many years, but it rarely lasts forever. People say that as the legal problems became real and prison doors closed, Ghislaine Maxwell started to speak more openly. Not in big news conferences, but in statements that suggested she was cooperating, sharing secrets, and felt angry at those who walked free. Her claims, it is said, reached back into the world of Hollywood, modeling, and fancy social circles. This included mentions of Meghan Markle's past friends and connections. At the same time, something else quietly started to happen. Picture archives changed. Photographs disappeared. Rules about using pictures showed up without any explanation. Getty Images, people claim, removed or limited access to certain pictures of Meghan Markle. These were pictures that used to be easy to find. No public reason was given to people watching. It looked as if big organizations were trying to erase visual records before they could be looked at again with new eyes. But erasing things itself draws attention. Because when systems try to hide things instead of dealing with them, they confirm one thing: the hidden stuff still matters. And by this point, too many people knew what had been there to pretend it never existed. For years, the story stayed the same because it was carefully managed. Pictures were erased, names were separated, timelines were made simple. What couldn't be denied was hidden under what couldn't be proven, until the moment that protection disappeared. What this story shows is not just one big problem, but a way things happen, a method where being unknown helps you get access. Access helps you become important, and being important tries to change the past. But records don't forget. Photographs wait. People who saw things remember. And silence only works until someone decides it's not helping them anymore. These pictures coming out again don't end the story. They reopen it, not with loud yelling, not with a big show, but with something far more dangerous to powerful systems: context. Because once you understand the full story, the narrative can no longer be controlled, and what was once invisible becomes impossible to ignore. This is not the end. This is the moment when the record stopped being changeable.